A.G. Wells was the most famous futurist in the beginning of the 20th century. And he said once, human history is, in essence, a history of ideas. The big ideas of histories are making the future. In the beginning, in the Classic Age, in the Renaissance after the Dark Ages, in the beginning of democracy and consumerism, there were big, huge ideas which created new societies. And what could be the central idea of the coming 50 years? It is, of course, ecology, nature, the idea of a green planet. There are two different kinds, two different ideas of ecology. One is the green ecology, the other one is the blue ecology. The green ecology argues that we are too many people on this planet. We can't survive like that. We eat too much, we drink too much, we use too much energy. The blue ecology would argue there are maybe not enough intelligent systems where we create new possibilities for mankind, using ideas, special functions of nature. Humans are enemies of nature. But is that really true? You also could argue from the point of view of the blue ecology that we are part of the nature, including our technologies which are evolving over time, becoming more differentiated, more adaptable. Technology is the problem. But why can't technology be the solution of a lot of problems humans have since the dawn of times? If we look into the future from today, we sometimes only see problems. Problems. How can we ever solve the CO2 disaster? How can we avoid the global heat wave, which will threaten civilization? But if we change our point of view, future makes much more sense. So let's make a regnosis. The regnosis is the opposite of a prognosis. While we look into the future, our brain is filled of fear and buts. But can't we? But will it not work? But let's jump into the year 2050, the year where we nearly created a fossil-free civilization, and look backwards. And then suddenly it makes sense. In the 20s of the 21st century, we learned to reduce our output of carbons into the atmosphere. We did this by coordinated efforts between a lot of countries, interest groups, between industry and politics, and the citizen. And while we started to create new technology systems without fossil energies, we also learned a lot about ourselves, our connection to nature. In the year 2030, hydricity came up, so we used hydrogen as the main energy provider. We produced hydrogen from the sun in endless amounts. Our airplanes, our cars, everything which moved and everything which needs energy, our cities, suddenly became completely different. They became more quiet, more green, more sustainable in the old and in the new sense. So it was a little bit like the old discussion about smoking. You remember? Smoking in airplanes, smoking in restaurants. Before it happened that it was not allowed anymore, everybody thought that would never be possible. But then, 10 years later, when we look back, it was feeling quite natural. So it will be natural not to use fossil energies, because we have alternatives. This monument is called the Dubai Mastaba. Mastabas were the big pyramids, the big graves for the pharaohs. And this idea was created by the artist Christo before he died. This was basically his last vision of a huge artifact in the desert of Dubai. And it was a monument for the fossil age, the age you remember when we used oil from the depths of the earth, concentrated power of the sun, compressed by the earth for millions of years. And this pyramid, as high as the Gizeh pyramid, is made out of 3 million oil barrels, empty oil barrels, the last of its kind. The artist Christo never could realize this dream. There is a small pyramid in London Hyde Park. But in the year 2050, we will create this monument for the fossil age in the desert of Dubai, I'm quite sure. Imagine there wouldn't be any waste, only circular processes where matter comes to matter in recycling and upcycling. This is the jeans I normally wear. It's a leasing jeans, so you pay a certain amount in the month and after 1 year you own it. And this jeans is made by bio, cotton, fair trade, reasonable payments for the people who create it. And if it's gone, if it's damaged because of garden work, I send it back and there comes a new jeans out of it with 60 or 70%. Now this recycling process is quite effective. And imagine that all the products, all the things we are using for our daily life would come into an endless circle. This is called the circular economy, and it will happen in the next 20 years. Or imagine we had an architecture, a design, where every material can be reused of a building and where the building itself creates energy. This is the future evolution house on the outskirts of Vienna, where I live with my family. And what we try here is to make a carbon positive building, a building which produces more energy than it uses. So we have a strong solar collector system with about 15 kilowatts per hour production from the sun. We have a huge battery system which works also in emergencies, which can keep the building up for around 3 days. And the most of the materials of these buildings are reusable or recyclable. Imagine this in the future, where, for example, the facade and the glass can produce energy itself. And think of all the buildings in the world where we could install collectors on top of it, or on the skyscrapers, which could produce energy for themselves and for others. This is a blue ecology in action, where everything creates, uses and recycles energy and matter. And it's a question of human ingenuity, of engineering and designing these systems, which leads us into the future.